if they provided greater access and if they provided us with the ability to do it. Instead, what it does is it gives us a greater opportunity to hear what the prepackaged image is that they've run through the overnight polls and everything else. And I think, again, the overnight, if we could find a way to say, okay, fine, work your overnight poll, work your message, but now tell us what you really think. That's, you know, it's all about being electable, certainly, but I think if people actually let their guard down and showed us who they were, they might even be more electable.
Well, we frequently say the issues are not important, but we've just come through a congressional campaign where issues sure were important. They resulted in the turnover of the two houses of Congress, and people were very clear as to why they wanted a change. It wasn't simply, well, they had listened to what was the package message. They were very clear sense of discontents that were expressed in that election. If people choose not to exercise their franchise, then they have nobody to blame but themselves. And because politics is going to belong to people who care enough to be informed and to vote. And when 50% of the people in this country don't vote in a presidential race, I think they have nobody to blame really but themselves.
You're absolutely right, and it's that, as you say, we now have a political system that gets us, frankly, what we deserve. And we don't have somebody who can stand up there and say, when I was in college, I smoked pot. When I was in college, I protested Vietnam. We have all these guys who have to equivocate about what it is they did. And I'm sorry, if somebody at 19 years old was so cynical knowing that he wanted to have a political career that he wouldn't be caught dead with a picket when it was something he truly felt, then I don't want him to be my president anyway.
Right, right.
And so we are now creating a cast of characters that I think we've asked for.
In terms of, we only have actually about 3 minutes left. Getting back to the issues in respect to that, you mentioned a sort of a group of issues or a wide variety of issues. One issue you didn't bring up is Homeland Security. And it seems to me that could be very close to the top of the list in terms of the security of our ports and the security of our chemical factories. That's been in the news lately. How do we deal with that?
I think in New Jersey that is going to be an important issue. And I think that does come under the question of gravitas. Is this person tough enough to deal with what's going to be a long twilight struggle of people who are really outside of national borders? And are we going to be able to deal with them in a state like this that's terribly vulnerable? If 9/11 did anything, it certainly sensitized the New York, New Jersey metropolitan area to the Homeland Security question.
David, is this one of the issues you might be covering?
Absolutely, and it's also something I think we're absolutely sensitized to it, but we've become desensitized by by hearing that Wyoming is getting more money per capita than we are. And here we are essentially, on the front lines of this battle for Homeland Security. So I think, again, the issue is Homeland Security. The issue around it is the politics of Homeland Security. And that's where people start getting desensitized by saying, this is hugely important. I think about it every day I take the subway, every day I take the ferry, every day I'm on the highway. And but then where is the money coming from? Is it going to help us? And what is our future?
And that brings up the question, in a sense, that we began with. How dependent is our state government on the federal government in terms of grants or assistance or leadership? Homeland Security, as you say, is a really good example of that.
Well, I think we are terribly dependent on the federal government, but we also are the wealthiest state in the union. So maybe we ought to take a look at how we spend our own resources and reallocate them to what our priorities are, rather than to be spending the resources as we have in the past.
But at the moment, as I understand it, 22%, I think, of our state budget comes from the federal government. Is that an accurate figure, I think?
We are very low in terms of what we get back from the federal government, but part of it is low because we have high per capita income. Secondly of all, our elected representatives are not very effective in bringing home the bacon. Look at New Mexico, look at West Virginia, look at Alaska. So it's not just simply the federal government is ignoring us, it's the fact that we don't have the type of people with clout in place, and that also the government doesn't have to give us as much in terms of equalizing as they do to some of the poorer states, especially in the South.
But I think we're really a tale of at least two states. And yes, we have this astonishing amount of wealth, whether it's Wall Street, whether it's whatever. We have these people who have enormous amounts of wealth. We also have people who it's where they're living in staggering poverty. And I think the middle class is starting to get marginalized more and more for the things that they're having, the tax burden that they have to manage or try to manage, and all the other costs of living that are going up. You get a 3% cost of living raise for your at your job, and yet your personal budget is going up, you know, exponentially when you talk about fuel and heating oil and things like that. And so I think it's a real tipping point here for the state, because we do have so much money and we do have so few people who believe that they're going to be able to get over the hump and really make more money.
And we have a state budget that's chronically ill.
Right.
Yes. Well, we spent a year on tax reform, and we've seen that it's yielded very little. The Constitution guarantees to all the states a Republican, small r, form of government. It doesn't guarantee them a wise government.
That's a good point. Again, in terms of federal funding, it seems to me that there are some issues that have directly affected many of us. Child care issues, for example. Head Start funding, as I understand it, has either been flat or cut. Aid, let's say, to hospitals via Medicare. A lot of our hospitals are really in bad shape at the moment. So it seems to me these might be some of the issues that are important, but I'm not really sure they're going to come up. You know?
I don't think it'll be those specific issues. I think it's just a general sense that, you know, there are this large segment of the New Jersey population, whether they be near the poverty level or even like the middle class, which is, you know, just having, you know, lives from paycheck to paycheck, and those are the issues that are going to be important to them.
Right,
Yeah.
and since kids don't vote, and since the parents of kids who need Head Start programs and other programs like that are not voting, then that's why we're not going to see a whole lot of attention paid to those issues.
We got a very little time left. I just want, in the control room, if you could put up the website for Hall Institute again, www.hallnj.org. Quickly, we only have a minute left, as it turns out. Let's get back to the politics for a moment. Who's going to do well in New Jersey? Who won't do well? Hillary is behind in the polls at this point. Giuliani is ahead in the polls. Any thoughts?
I think Giuliani is ahead in the polls here because we know him. I think he's going to lag in the polls across the country because all of a sudden they're going to find out about the wives, about the other issues and everything else. So we know who he is. And maybe also we know who Hillary is, and that's why her numbers aren't as strong.
Who else might play well in the state? As we're speaking now, John Edwards' wife has been diagnosed with a recurrence of cancer. So it might even be unclear how far his campaign is going to go. But he's an attractive candidate.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised to see Obama do well in the state. There's a very strong grassroots effort behind him. And not only grassroots, like you're starting to see some people who have, you know, have names in politics who are, you know, big in fundraising and that are getting involved with the campaign. So I think, you know, he kind of brings that sense of a new leader, like somebody who's fresh, who hasn't been as involved, you know, before, and I think that appeals to a number of people, given the current political climate.
We're out of time, guys. I want to thank you for enlightening us. Hopefully you'll come back. There are many months before the campaign, before the end of that campaign. And if you'd like more information about this or any other Carpe Diem program, you could write to us at the email address on your screen, carpediem@mail.montclair.edu. Or you can give us a call at 973-655-5158. For Carpe Diem, I'm Bill Berlin, and thanks for watching.